Impulse wave. In this section, we will deal with the detailed discussing of the impulse wave. As we discussed in the section dedicated for the basic issues, the impulse waves can be divided into 5 waves of a certain characteristic, which go according to the direction of the wave of the higher degree. The impulse waves have the easily recognizable structure, and it is quite easy to interpret them. We have now to introduce a couple of additional details, which will help you to properly determine the impulse wave. You should always comply with this principle to properly define the 5-wave structure on the chart. The wave 2 never goes farther than 100% of the wave 1. The proper marking of this case may look like this. Wave 4 never enters the peak of wave 1. Wave 4 never enters the peak of wave 1. This rule applies for all non-leveraged markets. Elliot allowed for the wave 4 overlap to the peak of wave 1 in the markets with the leverage. I recommend to ignore this concession and use a strictly demarcated rule, in which the wave 4 can never overlap the wave 1. Introduction of the concessions to our analyses will result in a greater possibility of free interpretation of the chart, which usually will lead to an error. Such a situation we could mark properly like this. Wave 3 never goes beyond the end of wave 1. This situation should be properly described like this. The last principle we should obey is that usually one impulse wave, wave 1, 3, or 5, is elongated, so visibly longer than the 2 remaining. Elliot found in his observations that the wave 3 often is the longest, and certainly never is the shortest one. This relation is respected if wave 3 goes the greater percent distance than the other 2 waves in the impulse. About this structure of the impulse you will learn in the next lesson about its circumstances, in a lesson dedicated to the personality of the waves. Summary. The correct interpretation of the impulses should be based precisely on these few simple rules which we discussed in this lesson. Analysts who bend the basic rules of marketing the waves do not apply the theory described by Elliot, but their own undocumented and erroneous theory that misleads the others. The rules that I have presented to you reflect greatly the character of the impulse waves. Let me remind you that the impulse wave has the task to follow in line with the trend that sets a higher degree wave. Remember these rules, never ignore them, and respect them. You will have the confidence that you properly marked the 5-wave structure in your future analyses.